Hello, friends. My name is Barb Walden, and I am speaking to you today from my home in Indianapolis, Indiana. I'd like to share with you a story from church history, but before I begin that story, I'd like to share with you a scripture from the Doctrine and Covenants that has been crossing my mind often over the last couple of days. That scripture is Doctrine and Covenants, section 162, verse 6c, and it reads, "Be gentle and gracious with one another. A community is no stronger than the weakest within it. Even as the one you follow reached out to those who were rejected and marginalized, so must the community that bears his name." Sally Roth recently shared with us a story of Georg Safka practicing radical love for his Polish neighbors while residing in Germany in the midst of World War II. Young Georg wasn't alone as he practiced faith in action during this time. Wilhelm Kresley of Nuremberg, Germany, gave a pair of shoes to a slave laborer struggling to survive during the war. For his act of compassion, Kresley was arrested, tried, and sentenced to the Dachau extermination camp. Over the next 4 years, he endured life under the threat of being ushered into a camp death chamber. Rosie Sellars and her family also struggled to survive in Germany during the war. Her father lost his life in service to his country, and Rosie remembered the day her mother learned the tragic news from the local postman. Rosie's mother, now widowed, was facing life alone with 3 young children. Rosie described the stress of war in her family. She said, "No one knew from one day to the next if a bomb would hit the house. Almost every night, the town was awakened by sirens. My mother rushed her children to the bunkers with a little candle in each child's hand. At times, my mother would kneel in prayer through the entire night and pray to God for peace and protection, and her children would gather around her and listen. On many mornings when the townspeople came out of the bunkers, buildings would be burning and the screams of the wounded were heard. Still, my family did not lose its hope and faith in God that he would keep it safe and protected." End quote. Although the war drew to a close in 1945, the pains of war remained for Rosie and her family. Her community struggled with homelessness and starvation. There were days when the family did not have enough to eat, forcing some family members to take to the streets on bicycles to beg for a piece of bread from a farmer, or if really lucky, an egg. As though life wasn't challenging enough, Rosie's mother was hit by a truck and thrown from her bicycle in 1947. The doctors did not have much hope for the woman's condition and told the family she would likely pass in the night. After a long night of prayer, young Rosie contacted members of the local congregation and asked the elders to visit her mother in the hospital and perform an administration. During this time, Rosie relied on the support of the local church and those abroad to help her family survive. Her mother remained in the hospital for 4 months before she came home. It was during those 4 months that Rosie's family received several care packages from church members in Independence, Missouri. Rosie said these packages, quote, "meant a lot to us, especially the food. They were an answer to prayer," end quote. Rosie and her family are just one example in church history where we witness compassionate ministries and experiencing congregations in mission. I invite you today to take a moment to reflect on these stories from church history. Consider what parts of the story speak to you at this point in your life. How do you feel God calling you to practice compassionate ministry through Rosie's story? I'd like to close with the words from Doctrine and Covenants, section 163, verse 11a. And those words are, "God is calling for a prophetic community to emerge, drawn from the nations of the world, that is characterized by uncommon devotion to the compassion and peace of God revealed in Jesus Christ. Through divine grace and wisdom, this faith community has been given abundant gifts, resources, and opportunities to equip it to become such a people," end quote. Tonight, I wish you each of you the peace of Christ as you move forward into the world.